Dank jullie wel, dank jullie wel. Dag allemaal en welkom bij deze 5e en voorlopig laatste editie van Skin Deep. Oh. Ja, het is jammer, maar wie weet komt er nog een vervolg. Het gesprek over huidskleur, dat vindt natuurlijk niet alleen in Nederland plaats, ook ver over de grens. En in deze laatste editie van Skin Deep gaan wij daarom met z'n allen de grens over. Door middel van geschiedenislessen en verhalen uit hun eigen leven en hun werk nemen internationale mediamakers en activisten ons aan de hand mee naar hun land in Europa. En omdat ze hier in de zaal zitten, schakel ik nu over op Engels. So, welcome to our international guests. We're so very happy that you could make it. This final edition of Skin Deep is dedicated to the exploration of narratives and debates about skin color beyond the Dutch border. So you, the international people who are joining us today, will take us by the hand to your part of Europe and tell us your personal history lessons and your own personal experiences. And who knows, maybe we can learn from each other. So how do European countries discuss skin color and inclusion? What are our main differences and our similarities? What can we learn from each other's stories, experiences, and practices? And is there such a thing as a cross-border European debate on racism and colonialism? Hopefully we'll find out tonight. So a very short introduction of our main guests tonight. Milad Nigouzi from Belgium is right here. She's a writer. Thank you for coming, Milad. She's a writer and activist and the co-founder of Belgian Renaissance. We had our sights on Karen Taylor, who is a policy advisor from the German Bundestag, but unfortunately she had to cancel quite last minute. We hope she's doing well. And we have Pascal Obolo, who's running here now with a book under her arm, but you will meet her when she gets here. She's from France, a film director, an activist, and an artist. So I'll be talking to them separately and also in a panel in an attempt to raise the quality of the European discourse on our changing world. And furthermore, our own Charles Landvreugd, our in-house artist, will share his vision on the Afropean identity in the arts in his monthly spoken words. Glad you're here, Charles. And of course, you, the audience, are very welcome to join the debate. You can do it in any language you like, and we'll translate everything to English. And or, let's say, the moderator of the interaction is our own Andrew Makkinga.
Oh,
yes, Andrew?
Yeah. You're laughing and clapping now, but you'll be angry at me later on, because the problem is we never succeed in giving everybody the microphone to get their question. So in short, I would want to kick off by saying there's going to be room for, let's say, a question after every guest.
Yes, that's right.
And we would love that one person to come up to the stage and sit there.
On our chair.
Whether it's in Dutch or in English, share that question. For those of you who have questions during the interview, save them till the Q&A. After the break, we're going to have, especially because Karen is not here, we're going to have enough time to go through a lot of questions. I even think we'll have the most room for questions ever.
Exactly.
Yeah?
So write them down. I'm sure you all have a piece of paper and a pen with you. Write down your questions and save them for after the break.
So, having that said, you know, there's another thing. Maybe just a round of applause for everybody that's part of Skin Deep, because we've been doing this for a few times now, and I'm so happy that yeah. And speaking of looking back after one season of this new show, maybe we could look at some footage to see where we started and at all the guests that we had. Should we do that?
Oh, that's a great
Let's
idea.
have a look.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. And that there's actually black people here as well. Dat is ook een applaus waard, want nou wil ik eigenlijk sowieso een applaus voor het feit dat het Black Achievement Month is. And that there's actually black people here as well. Dat is ook een applaus waard, want vaak is het witte mensen talking about the black people.
Nou. Hey, maar ik wilde zeggen dat dit mijn huiskamer is, oké? Het is vanavond mijn huiskamer.
Oké.
En we zijn bezig met een serie, Skin Deep. En we gaan praten over zwart en wit. En waar we vooral mee bezig gaan zijn, is beter worden in praten over zwart en wit. We gaan oefenen hoe je zo'n gesprek kan voeren. En vandaag gaan we het hebben over rolmodellen. Wie zien we niet? Als ik word gerepresenteerd, is dat dan op een juiste manier? Of is het stereotyped?
Nee, dit verhaal gaat over altijd en overal een buitenbeentje zijn. maar toch in grote lijnen doen wat je zelf wilt.
Deze opera vond ik tof. Daarna was het eigenlijk meer een soort celebrity show.
Waardoor de mensen die dat tegen mij zeiden zich vertegenwoordigd voelden.
Als onze regering wederom in staat is om in 2017... met de nieuwe regering die eraan komt alleen maar witte gezichten te plaatsen.
Net ging het over, de verantwoordelijkheid ligt aan bij rolmodellen. Wat ik niet helemaal daarmee eens ben. Want ik denk, nee, de verantwoordelijkheid ligt bij instituten. Als zelfs instituten het niet doen, hoe moeten wij het dan doen?
Ja. Ik vind het juist zo mooi als je juist als individu er bent. En waarom zou je identiteit ontlenen aan je huidskleur?
Oké, mag ik... Please. Anders valt ons hele concept in duik.
En ik heb dus heel bewust gekozen om op die manier te reageren. En zelfs op die manier mocht het niet.
Ik ken iemand.
Ja, en die kent weer iemand.
Een neef van een nicht. Een zus, haar vriendin.
Ja, die is dus Surinaams.
Marokkaans. Arubaan.
Nee, Turks.
Dus ik ken die cultuur.
Oh, ik weet hoe jullie dat doen.
Empathie is niet het eindoordeel en niet het laatste antwoord op dit probleem... van dat we nu in verlegenheid zijn geraakt met elkaar te spreken.
Doch eerst moeten in ons land de proletariërs tot strijdvaardig klassebewustzijn komen. Eerst moeten zij met de oude slavenketenen ook de oude slavenmentaliteit af weten te schudden.
Een snelweg blokkeren is illegaal en bovendien levensgevaarlijk. Waarom worden ze niet opgepakt?
Dan wordt er een afweging gemaakt in de lokale driehoek... ten koste van wat wil je dit laten doorgaan.
Als men onverbloemd racisme met open armen ontvangt... en hun kinderen ermee opvoedt. Hoe zit het dan als mijn dochter straks bij hun solliciteert naar een baan? Zoals je ziet, het gaat niet alleen om Zwarte Piet die racistisch is... Het gaat om een veel groter probleem, namelijk institutioneel racisme.
Ik kom gewoon ook vrij weinig donkere mannen tegen in de dingen waar ik me bevind.
Dat ik me bewust ben van het feit dat mijn smaak bepaald is door de maatschappij.
Ja, want ik denk namelijk niet zo dat het zo is dat iemand van jouw kleur automatisch dezelfde normen en waarden heeft.
Nu praten we over zwart-wit, maar ik wil een intelligente man, ik wil een ambitieuze man, ik wil een knappe man, ik wil een lieve man, ik wil een zorgzame man en ik wil een zwarte man. En ze staan allemaal naast elkaar.
Want als we het hebben over zwart, waar hebben we het dan precies over? Ja. Je hebt Hindoestaans, je hebt Kriols, je hebt Javaans. Hoe gaat dat met elkaar? Dus ik pleit nu voor een tweede deel waar jullie ook allemaal aanwezig willen zijn.
Ja,
maar voor nu, echt, dank jullie wel.
Applaus.
So, Andrew, so what sticks to your mind of these 4 episodes we had?
Oh man, you know what? The engagement that came from you guys. Some of you really stood up and were like, yo, you messed up with the program. There should have been a black woman here or a black professor or a black man. I was like, okay. And to be honest, we even spoke to the people of the venue. Never in the history of the venue have we been selling out this venue with so many people of color and white people together speaking about these issues. So that's what I like. That's what I like. That's my favorite thing.
Yeah, me too.
I was wondering, a question. We lost Karen as a guest, but are we going to show the animation or should we not do that? What do you think?
Maybe we should. Yes, we will.
Yeah?
We will when we get to that
Okay,
part.
okay.
Okay, so Andrew, so now we're going to zoom out because we've been looking at the Netherlands so far. And today we're going to just zoom out and see what our European neighbors think about this subject.
Yes.
And we'll see you back
Bye-bye.
when there's interaction. Andrew, people, Andrew. And let me not forget to welcome the people watching the live stream. Hi, wherever you are. It's us here in Amsterdam in the Rode Hoed, having a good time. Join in and send your messages on Facebook or whatever. Wherever you want to send them, you can send them. So, starting out with our neighbors down south in Belgium. How does the discussion about black and white take place there? And what history lies behind the Belgian way of dealing with the topic. So here's a very, very quick rundown made by Raoul and Leo Balai, A History of Belgium. Have a look.
Colonial History, under 3 minutes, presents Belgium. Before 1830 there were no colonies because there was no Belgium. Ruled by other countries, the Flemish were helping the Portuguese on the Azores and Canary Islands, which comes from cane, meaning dog and not bird. As the Dutch founded the West Indian Company and one of the founders came from Antwerp, Belgians are part of the Dutch colonization history in a big way, just as the Portuguese Jews who came through Antwerp and brought their slaves, but also the word neger and more to Amsterdam. Belgium becomes independent, the king enters the stage. He wanted colonies and had some ideas, which all turned into a fiasco. except maybe Guatemala. A new king enters the stage, planning over 50 colonies all around the world, including the Netherlands. Again, a fiasco. But Eureka, Africa. Leopold sends out an Englishman who founds Leopold City, better known as Kinshasa, and starts the scramble for Africa. Congo is his personal colony. Private companies are delivering mainly ivory and rubber with the support of a colonial army, resulting in pure malice, the most famous being the chopping off of hands. An estimated 10 million people die. Meanwhile, in Asia, even the state thinks it's getting too crazy and takes control, setting up a special system, putting state, missionary and private companies in control. The so-called politique indigène differs from the French and English, who use indirect rule. Up pops World War I, Rwanda and Burundi are conquered from Germany. The UN puts the countries under protectorate of Belgium, who enforces indirect rule. Tutsi to Hutu, a disaster waiting to happen, as it did in 1959, early 90s, exploding in 1994. World War II ends in gaining territory by driving out Italy. Then social classes are created, only to lead up to independence. Lumumba and Kasavubu form government, resulting in the death of Lumumba and the Congo crisis, leaving a dictator in charge till 1997. Back home, a battle over the use of French and Dutch language leads to new legislation, unknowingly giving birth to the extreme right-wing party. Two small parties use a 30s fascist party slogan as their new name. Getting convicted for racism years later makes them change their name. Almost 25% of the seats in Flemish and EU Parliament are filled up by these racist bigots today. Research by 4 Belgian universities under Afro-Belgians from former colonies result in 80% feels discriminated, 60% has a higher education, but they are 4 times as likely to be unemployed. This year started with a dessert named Mature Negresse. Part of the response of the owner was, "I've lived all my life in the Congo, I'm open to other cultures, support mixed marriage and religious freedom." So far for Belgium.
And then they blame migrants for making European life complicated. Yeah. Wonderful little film made by father and son, Raoul and Leo Balai. Thank you very much. So joining me now is Milad Niguzi. She's a writer, she's an activist, she's a co-founder of Belgian Renaissance, an organization that seeks to boost self-awareness of the African diaspora in many creative ways. Join us, Milad. Milad, come up. So she currently works for the Center for Fine Arts, Beaux-Arts, in Brussels, where she's the coordinator of Next Generation Please, which is a political artistic project for youngsters. Welcome, welcome, Milad. Thank you so much for coming here. First up, let's explain the situation of the dessert that we just saw. This was a dessert in Belgium called Mature Negresse.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
So a little town in Limburg, so not to be confused with Dutch Limburg, had a dessert called rijpe negerin, which translates to mature negress. And they've had it for about 20 years, I think, and no one said a word about it. No one once said, like, hey, what's this about? Until a Dutch couple went there and they said, they put it on Facebook, basically, on social media, and people reacted. And the owner of the restaurant said, but like, it was my Congolese friend that suggested I would call the dessert this name, and I didn't mean anything by it. But the backlash was so big and was so huge on social media that eventually she changed the name.
And what's it called now? Do you have any idea?
I have no idea.
Have you ever tasted it?
No.
No? Okay, well, let's leave it at that. Can you describe for us, Milad, the black and white debate in Belgium? What does it look like?
It's very complicated. It's very tiring. I think so.
Very tiring?
Very tiring. So in the video we saw Vlaams Blok.
Yes.
So I think, and you know, I think that's an important part of the debate. So in 1991, which was 26 years ago, the year I was born in, basically, they had a tremendous, they won in Antwerp, which is the biggest Flemish city, and no one saw it coming. This was 26 years ago, so they were an extreme right, very xenophobic, very racist. You know, they flirted with Nazi ideologies, and they won.
Did it shock the Belgians, or did they think it was
shocked?
They
No,
were.
They were shocked. So 26 years ago, people were shocked. This openly racist party winning seats, and you know, people were outraged. But they they dominated the debate on racism. They had this very racist program called the 70 Points Program to resolve the foreigner problem. Basically, it was just a vicious anti-immigrant, anti-foreigner program. And when it came out 20-something years ago, people, again, were outraged, and they said, we can't govern with a party like that. It's impossible. They're racist. We're not going to govern with them. So they set up what was called cordon sanitaire. So no traditional party was to govern with them. So fast forward 2018, so they never governed, but most of the issues, most of the program, the bullet points, have been executed by traditional parties. So there have never been, the collective deportations that we have now. We have closed detention center for asylum seekers. We just have, really bad conditions for asylum seekers. So the irony is a party that's never been in the Belgian government
still got what they wanted.
Still got what they wanted, not only in terms of policy and institutional, but the language as well has infiltrated Belgian society. So their slogan was eigen volk eerst, which means your own people first. And what we see now is this idea that they started, like foreigners are coming to our country and they're taking everything from us and they're taking our culture and we're being suppressed, we're being oppressed by foreigners. This language that they started is being used by traditional parties and by Joe the plumber in the street.
I think it's a narrative we see all over Europe. Now Belgium and the Netherlands are often seen as sister countries, but are there differences that you could name in this respect?
So Belgians like to think they're more civilized than Dutch people.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, we think the opposite?
I know.
Yeah.
You think Belgians are dumb, right?
Oh, well, that's what they say.
They are a little bit.
Yeah.
But, what they think is they look at the Netherlands and they look at Black Pete debate and they look at all these different race debates, the word wit and blank, and so basically they redo the same debates a year later or a few months later or a few days, depending on...
After we've put everything on fire, the Belgians come along.
Right. And then they redo the same debates. We go to talk shows, we write op-eds, and then we pat ourselves on the back because we remain civil and we didn't arrest anybody. And look at our neighbors in the north; they're fighting on the street, but we didn't do that.
Oh, that's so civilized of you.
But it isn't. It isn't. It's a strategy.
Of course, it is.
Yes.
So are the Belgians as shocked as many Dutch are? Because the Dutch always thought of themselves as being this very liberal, open-minded nation, and all of a sudden the other side pops up, the other part of the character. How is that in Belgium?
Belgium doesn't have that identity crisis that the Netherlands has because it's always known that it's a racist country.
And they don't care about it?
I don't know. Some of them care, but the majority doesn't care about race. It's not something that they have to deal with on a daily basis. So yeah, like if a right-wing, openly racist party managed to win in 1991, you basically know that you're a racist country.
Right.
So we had no illusions about that whatsoever. Whereas in the Netherlands, the Netherlands always thought we're a progressive country, Nederland gidsland, etc. And then now you see the PVV, you see all these, awful things happening in society, and it's like, oh, but we're not who
This is not us.
This is not, we are not who we thought we were. So that cognitive dissonance is not present in Belgium.
So that makes it, in a way, simpler in Belgium?
It makes it more honest, I would say.
Yeah.
It makes it more, we don't, people say, but I'm not a racist. But when you look at the facts and when you look at history, Belgium has a very dark collaboration history as well with the Nazis and the German occupation. So they know, yeah.
And it's not something that they are particularly ashamed of, let's put it that way.
Well, no, it is tough to talk with Belgians about race. Because they might know, but there's a difference between knowing and wanting to talk about it.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult conversation.
So how does the conversation take place? What initiatives are developed in Belgium? How does it go? How is this debate done in Belgium?
Well, so one of the strategies is to look at the North. That's something.
Look at us and say we're just going to do it slightly differently.
Right, exactly. So that's what the Flemish part does. The French part looks at France, which is very much. They're really dominant in terms of culture, language, obviously. So France is very much their United States. So the South looks at France, Brussels looks at France, and the North, the Flemish part, looks at the Netherlands. But then there's other, instances. Whoa.
Instances.
Wow, that's a difficult word. There's like a statue, for instance, in Brussels of Leopold II. So that causes debate. Like, should we have it? So there's evolutions in society, but it's always like we're catching up. Like, okay, there's a discussion somewhere else, and like let's have it here as well. And we're not very much starting debates. Well, there is one exception.
And that is?
There is an organization called Métis van België, Métis de Belgique. So, as you saw in the animation, Belgium has a very dark colonial history. And one of the darkest unknown elements is that colonials used to rape black women. They had children. Then those mixed-race children were put in orphanage houses. And when the Congo and Rwanda and Burundi, when they became independent, those children were taken to Belgium and were put in orphanages in Belgium, all over the country. And then they entered foster families. Huge, tragedy.
So Belgium actually claimed those children, but just put them away.
Right.
That's what you're saying?
Yes. They claimed those children, they kidnapped them because they didn't think a black woman was fit to raise a mixed-race child. And then they put them in orphanages all over Belgium. So this happened one generation ago. So Helene de Beukelare, who I'll show, her mother actively tries to demand action and eerherstel, and reparations, emotional reparations, but as well as administrative, they want money because they didn't have any birth certificates, they didn't have the Belgian nationality, they didn't have anything, so they had to pay out of their own pocket to make sure they had this, so they want reparations. And they got to the Senate, and now they're going to appear in the House of Representatives, and they're getting there. So that's an organization that really,
putting
fights
this on the agenda.
Yes, and that's putting reparations on the agenda, and that's a first in Europe.
Yeah. So how does your work fit in? What is it that you do that can further this conversation?
So you mentioned I co-founded Belgian Renaissance a few years ago in 2014. So Belgian Renaissance was a collective of young people that tried to empower the African diaspora in Belgium. And we organized seminars and workshops and lectures. And we, people just there were so many people coming to our events, and we were really taken aback. We didn't expect that. So we knew this is something special. And after Belgian Renaissance, other initiatives came. In Belgium and the Netherlands, you have Black Speaks Back, a video collective as well that tries to highlight the stories of Afro-Belgians and Afro-Dutch people. But yeah, so I write as well. I don't do that as much as I did because in Belgium, and I think it's the same in the Netherlands, they want you to write very reactionary. So if something happens and they want your opinion and what do you think and can you react? So I've refrained from reacting and focusing on creating.
Yes, because why is it that you don't want to go along with that expectation?
Because it's a game. It's a game that you play not for your own community, but for white people, basically.
How so?
Yeah, they say, oh, this happened. Can you please react to it? And we want to hear your opinion, but you're not really listening. You want clickbait, you want to sell your newspaper or your magazine. Yeah. And at the end of the day, nothing is resolved, and there's no action. We just talked a lot, but nothing happened. Yeah. So, you know, I try not to react, but create.
Well, that's good. So what do you create?
So I work for the Center for Fine Arts, and I'm project coordinator of Next Generation Please, which is a European project. So Brussels is the capital of Europe, and you know we have the European institutions. So we have a European project as well. And I'm trying to broaden the idea of Europe. So I'm trying to get Afro-European projects in there as well. Like Black Speaks Back has a project in Next Generation, please.
We do have a clip of Black Speaks Back. Do we have time for that? Let's look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Europa is niet alleen maar wit. En daarom brengt Black Speaks Back Afro-Europese jongeren samen in Brussel om de allereerste afrofuturistische musicalfilm te realiseren. Een film over de toekomst van Europa.
This film lets people time travel to an Afro-European future.
Told through 5 short stories about what that future could entail.
Moi, ce qui m'inspire dans ce projet, c'est la motivation vraiment à donner encore plus de pouvoir à la communauté africaine et encore plus d'opportunités.
Yeah, so it goes on, but we leave it at this. They need, I think, about 5,500.
Yes,
to make
they have a crowdfunding page. You can find it online, and you can donate. And they need 5,500 euros to finish the movie that the center I work for helped co-create.
Yeah. So what do you expect that film to be or to do once it's ready?
To broaden the narrative and the imagination of what it means to be Black in Europe, to deepen the conversation, and to reflect. Yeah.
Do you by any chance know the website by heart where they can go
and donate?
I think
it's crowdfunding.com/euphoria. But if you Google Black Speaks Back, then you can find it.
Then you'll find it. Okay, so who do you think we should be following closely? Apart from yourself, of course.
Yes.
But who are interesting people?
Don't follow me.
Oh, I said not physically people. I meant online. Yeah. Let's be cool about this. Yeah. But who should we look out for? Let's put it that way.
There's a lot of voices, and it was hard to make a choice. But 2 ladies I want to, highlight are Dalila Hermans. I have a picture of her. So Dalila Hermans, who she has Rwandese roots. She's adopted, and she's really one of the most public figures in Belgium. And she really, there's people that believe in changing the hearts and minds of people, and very much try to do that. I don't know if I'm that person, but she very much.
So how does she do that? How?
She writes, she engages, she goes to talk to people in the smallest villages in Belgium, and she pours her heart out, and she gets very emotional. She's a mother. She has 3 children. So I guess for her, in a way, the stakes are higher.
Yes.
And I think she does incredible work. So.
And how do the Belgians react to her?
Well, she's a celebrity as well. So she participated in the Slimste Mens van België.
Oh, that's her. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So.
Didn't she win?
Almost.
Oh, almost.
Yeah. So she's a celebrity, so she's known as an activist, but at the same time, she's Dalila from the Slimste Mens, so, people can relate to her. I think that's her biggest power. I think she's very relatable.
Okay, so Dalila Hermans.
Yes.
And the other lady?
So Helene de Beukelare is a co-founder of Black Speaks Back, the video you just saw. And her mother founded the organization Métisse van België. And she's a writer, she's an activist, she studied history, so she knows what she's talking about as well. And what she does is she takes the conversation to another level. She goes beyond the clickbait and the headlines, and she talks, okay, but let's look at the history, and what are we talking about really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, there's one thing that confuses me. Métis.
Yeah.
That's white and Amerindian. Not white and black.
I know. But yeah, in Belgium you say métis.
Oh, that's the same word?
The most neutral word to say mixed race.
Well, thank you. So it's been very enlightening. I wonder if there's anybody who has a question for Milad. If so, I'd like to invite you to join us here in our little confession chair. Anybody with a question for Milad at this point? Yeah, let Andrew have some sound.
Please do. Want straks op het eind gaat iedereen hier weer staan en dan is het.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to hold it
No,
against
just
you.
1 second. There is somebody somewhere in the back. I can feel it. No? Okay.
Okay.
Ah, thank you. Applaus, 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 applaus. U? Hier. Oh,
No.
Okay. Nee.
Rule number 1. Tell them, Andrew.
Could you come downstairs? Please? This
This is because we really don't. It's for the live stream.
Please, yeah.
If you shout from upstairs, the people watching from
Come.
home cannot hear
We
you.
are opening the door as we speak. Please. No, take it easy. Take it easy.
We have all the time in the world. Yeah.
Maybe another question.
I saw a hand up there somewhere.
Ja, er is wel iemand.
You guys are so shy.
Ja, het mag ook in het Nederlands. Het is allemaal geen probleem. Ik zie een dame daar. Ik hou de microfoon wel in mijn hand, want er zijn soms mensen die... Ja, nou ja.
Yeah, it's just more of a comment, but you were talking at some point about mixed race children who came to orphanages to Belgium after colonial independence. I was wondering if you know about the organization in the Netherlands that also does this. I only know the Dutch word, oorlogsliefdekind. And they do this with mixed race children from the colonial war in Indonesia in 1940s. So it wasn't a question, just a comment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Had you heard of it? No.
She has arrived. I think she's over there.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Good for you.
yeah. Introduce yourself and ask your question.
Hi, my name is Hedan.
Hi, Hedan.
Welcome. I heard you say that you think it's tiring to have the conversation. I feel the same. I think there are a lot more people in Belgium than in the Netherlands. Am I right?
No,
No?
population-wise?
Yeah?
No, Belgium is a country of 11 million people.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to know how the people like you and me feel, or how the conversation is being held at the moment.
Well, and excuse me, the people like you and me is like women, black women in this set?
No,
People with curly hair.
with another background.
Okay, yeah, but we have to be clear because otherwise we'll have...
I understand.
Yeah.
Not white people.
Okay, so your question is, how are we having the conversation amongst ourselves?
With white people.
Okay. I don't have that conversation.
Ooh.
Because, as I said...
Come on, you must have at least one white friend.
I do.
Okay.
I have a lot of white friends. I have a white boyfriend, actually.
See?
So, but the thing is, I refrain from having conversations about race with white people because it's tiring. It costs emotional labor. You give and you give and you give, and you're asked to, but show me your wounds. Like, did you really experience racism? But what did you experience? And you're just always explaining. And at one point, I just said, no, I'm not going to have this conversation. It's not for me. But then I see Dalila, who's having that conversation and who's trying to change the hearts and minds of people. And we need those people. But I'm not that person.
You're not that person. You just don't have the patience, endurance.
It asks too much of me. I don't think I have the endurance.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You said that Belgium knows it's racist. Something in I find it very hard to believe, even though we all know the Congo, and I find it hard to believe that a nation, whether in Europe or in Africa, knows how cruel. You need a conversation to really acknowledge that. Could you elaborate on what you mean?
Yes, I can. Because what I wanted to say is, Vlaams Belang and now the NVA, they're openly racist parties.
Yeah.
and Belgians know that, and they like that.
Ah,
right?
in that context, yeah. Okay.
But that doesn't mean that Belgians know their colonial history. They don't at all. People don't know what Leopold II did. People don't know why there are black people in Belgium. Like, they have no idea because they're not taught at school. Like, I had one lesson about Congo, like for 20 minutes, and that was that. You're obliged to teach colonization in...
But it doesn't happen.
It does, but you're free to do with it whatever you want.
So if you want to do 20 minutes, that's okay too?
Or if you want to talk about Greek colonization.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's up to teachers.
It's up to
I think we do
teachers.
the same here in the Netherlands, which makes it quite difficult.
So, so what I want to stress, like, Belgians, they're confronted with their racist behavior, but that doesn't mean they know their colonial history. That's not what I wanted to say. They don't know it at all. Yeah.
I think the same applies to the Netherlands.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for now. You'll be joining us again after the break in our panel. But before you go, well, normally I'm the person taking pictures, and I'm not going to let this chance go. So if you could just stand up.
Oh.
This is why we love Aldith. Yeah, this is beautiful.
Are you going to take a selfie?
Yeah, selfie time. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a selfie. Right now, you are witnessing... Applaus!
Thank you. Thank you, Milat Nigusi. So, yes, as I was saying, you'll be seeing more of Milat after the break when she joins our other guests and we have this panel discussion, including all of you. So our own creative genius, our own Charles Landvreugd, has taken it upon himself to give us his views on Afropean identity in the arts. What works, what doesn't? Should we look at the United States for inspiration, or should we create our own narratives? I can hardly wait for this. Charles Landvreugd.
As per Dutch hospitality, I shall do this in English. And I actually wrote it down this time so I don't digress. But I have more to say. Please keep this image in mind because we will be speaking about it later. Is it? Ah, nice. Gluren bij de buren. Michael Tegja wrote in his book Hosselen, in Dutch of course, but I translated it. I also celebrate that we, even if it was just for an instance on these pages, are not obliged to bow over any veneered style, and instead of that have our advantage from remote similarities and remarkable kinship. To complement their local European inter- and transcultural subjectivity, just like other parts of society worldwide, continental Afro-Europeans have embraced aesthetics coming out of the African diaspora, particularly the United States. A good example of this would be the worldwide spread of hip-hop. And in every country, the interpretation and development of these aesthetics by Afro-Europeans is different. So in every country in Europe, as we heard just now from Belgium. The difference, I think, lies in the level of integration, the stage of assimilation, social structure of the environment, the demands of society, the history with colonialism, and how the consequences of colonialism are perceived in that respective country. Taking these factors into and the development of internet, and consequently by the development of internet, the growing of black awareness, when we take this into account, we can see that stories are being retold. These are stories of vindication. I've tried to translate vindication to Dutch. Rechtvaardiging of genoegdoening zou dat zijn. So vindication, emancipation, representation, and post-representation. Effectively, now in the Netherlands, we are trying to do in a few decades what the African Americans did in over more than a century. So you had this period of vindication, representation, etc., etc. So, we're there already, yes. So rather than producing, as Glissant would say, a carbon copy of equivalence or the linear projection of progress, looking at what the neighbors are doing means that how we translate and transform is a bit like Glissant's spiral retelling. So I want to say something, I'm going to digress a little bit, because it's a carbon copy of equivalence. And there's a big difference between equality and equivalence. Gelijkheid en gelijkwaardigheid. Those are two different things, right? So the importance of repeating this story, like retelling the story in kind of a spiral way, as Glissant imagined it. For me, the investigation that I've been doing, the research I've been doing, is into whether there is such a thing as a particular Afro-European sensibility, and if this sensibility produces an Afro-European aesthetics in the visual arts. So, of course, we have, I should have written it down, the book The Black Atlantic, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm specifically speaking about the continent, what happens on the continent, because we have a rather different history than the Americans and the British. And that means that we have different sensibilities and different ways of looking at things that I will go into later. And so I'm wondering whether on the continent something different is developing. So what is coming out of boom. No. So what is coming out of retelling the story? In Sweden, there is an Afro-Swedish populace born and raised in the country from foreign-born parents. Marco de Linde is one of these artists, and his project Painful Cake from 2012 was received as a contentious character and kind of reveals a difference in usage of iconography that can be attributed to continental European sensibilities at that time, 2012. So who knows this piece? Yeah, several people? Good. So for those who don't know it, this is a piece that Marco de Linde made. He basically made it based on the idea of Saartje Baartman. The Minister of Culture was there. It was the opening at, you know, this big art situation. And then the Minister of Culture was actually cutting into the figure while Marco de Linde was screaming, ah, ah. No, not funny ah, ah, but like screaming ah. It wasn't, you know. So what happened, I'm going to digress. What happened is that within the American and the British was like, how is that possible? How can you do that? This is racist, right? But this is what I'm talking about, continental Afro-European aesthetics. Because we do not have, okay, it's written down, I'm going to tell it anyhow. Because we don't have that particular gollywog history, something like this could have been made in the continent and could not have been made in Britain or in America, because no artist there would even consider doing something like this, right? So the work is part of the larger Afromantic series which Linde deploys, in which Linde deploys blackface to a variety of objects, including himself. By using a borrowed trope, the trope of this trope, right? Marco de Linde has attributed to the discussion on the use of blackface in continental European cultural expressions. His appropriation is creating an aesthetic that is not transgressive in this context, but rather plays with the covert, common sense racism and everyday racism in liberal circles where the work is located. By having individuals actively partake, he partly exposes their insensitivity and the ignorance about the sensibilities of black subjects on the continent. Danish artist Jeanette Ehlers speaks about the outcome of colonial empire in relation to the current situation in Europe. She focuses on the transatlantic slave trade and the Danish involvement, because a lot of people don't know that the Danish were involved in the transatlantic slave trade, which officially ended in 1802. Her photographs and videos that specifically speak about immigrating into Europe from Africa and the Caribbean place her close to the discussion on contemporary migration in the post-colonial debate. In the work Invisible Empire, this is a video, this is her dad, this is her dad. I wrote it down, I'm going to tell you. This is her dad. It's a video. It takes about 14 minutes. And her father is basically recounting his time in the Caribbean and when he arrived in Sweden, right? So In the work The Invisible Empire, which you can actually see it on her website, Jeannette Ehlers. She also has this other work which is called Bullets, where you kind of like see black people migrating to Europe, but in kind of like bullets that are like going to Europe. It's pretty interesting work. Just look her up, Jeannette Ehlers. I'm digressing again, I'm sorry. In the work Invisible Empire, which looks at human trafficking from Africa to Europe, she uses her Trinidadian father and weaves the consequences of the Atlantic slave trade into a contemporary narrative. Doing this, she subtly narrates Danish history back into the mind of the Danes and affirms her own subjectivity. In her own words, "My videos are all rearranging of well-known sceneries, and through that, it is a way of dealing with themes as entropy, representation of the body, anonymity, and reconstruction, subjectivity, and more." French artist Jimmy Robert does not speak about ethnicity in direct ways. He is inspired by and appropriates works from famous artists and writers, while inserting his body into the existing meta-discourse. Through form and content, the body as material becomes political by starting a conversation with existing structures about the space between representation and reality. He investigates the area between the image and the object, floating in a way that is not immediately apparent and lets meaning materialize in the space between. Within a European context, his work may be read or theorized as an investigation of the hyphen between Afro and European, or the hyphenated nature of contemporary subjectivity in general. So in my dissertation, which you will find as a book coming up next year, I speak about this hyphen space because we are often questioned or asked to be either Afro or European. And I would like to argue that we are what emerges from these two. So it's not hybrid, it's what happens in between, that space in between. Because if everything is hybrid, so Afro-European, European-Afro, it kind of becomes a discourse on originals. While I'm claiming that what we are doing here, who we are as subjects, is something totally new. It hasn't been seen yet, right? So I think that this is also what, what's his name? Sorry, Jimmy Roberts is doing. So many black French artists deal with the issues of colonialism and state relations with the overseas territories. Alexis Peskin is interested in the French ideal of liberté, égalité, et fraternité in relation to diversity. The diversity is critiqued not only references societal concerns, but also personal and intimate connections and direct surroundings. It is very worth it to look up Alexis Peskin. Can you read his name? He actually made an image of, how can I explain this? You know the image of the African-American image of a man that is lynched, right? And he turned it into an icon, putting a halo around his head. Basically turned this lynched man into a Jesus figure, and he called the work "He Died for Us," right? I couldn't find it on the internet. But what you see is that, you know, he's using, and many European black artists are using American stories to retell a story. And this, again, as I described it to you, would be an image that an American artist wouldn't conceive because of the enormous pain that is behind the lynching, right? So that turns it into this very specific continental European, Afro-European aesthetics that could not be imagined somewhere else, right? So his work, Alexis Peskin's work, is enveloped around his concerns that are related to race identity, and he cleverly mixes his personal ancestry in all, mixes his personal ancestry in order to generate new images that takes cues from Afro-American narratives to clarify and elucidate the situation in France. So here you see basically, well, what is it? What are we looking at? Are we looking at Marianne, right? The French Marianne. See that he uses the nails to actually, he uses this a lot, you know, which brings us back to Nkisi sculptures, right? The African sculpture. So there's kind of like a mixing of a completely Afro-European aesthetics is coming out of her. So he states, my art is just an elaborate response to my reflections about what I have witnessed. I think that my diverse background helps me understand that the problem is not white on black hatred, Jewish on Arab hatred, or Arab on Jewish hatred. The problem is hatred, or domination, or anything that hampers liberty and equality. So you see, because he's a French artist, he can think through, you know, liberty, equality, and fraternity, something that wouldn't be thought of like that somewhere else in Europe or somewhere else in the diaspora. Consequently, attributing to what could be called in the future a continental Afro-European aesthetics, right? We don't have it yet. I'm trying to imagine it, what it would look like. So, development of language to speak the specificities of the sensibilities. I put my own name because I wrote an essay about it, notes on imagining Afropia. You can find it online if you would like to read it. So in an effort to grasp an idea that does not have an own theoretical framework yet, this feature, these thoughts explore Afro-European aesthetics and sensibilities by looking at what is out there. By linking these artists together, a sense of what is aesthetic and these sensibilities have to offer are framed within a larger African diaspora conversation. These artists and work can be seen in a framework of migratory aesthetics. You could see them like that. You could see them as African diaspora aesthetics, or you could see them in the local art aesthetics. So you could say that Alexis Peskin is a French artist rather than an African diaspora artist, right? So we could also look at Alexis Peskin and all the other artists as European artists rather than African diaspora artists, right? It's a thought exercise that, you know, what would that result into if we do that? So they are not always grounded in a burgeoning black awareness, and there are artists who explicitly do not want to be spoken about in this sort of context. Either way, they all contribute to the global conversation on ethnicity, migration, and belonging. Through appropriation, aesthetics develop that point out issues in the local ways of seeing, but are not necessarily appreciated in other parts of the diaspora. So the Alexis Peskin, he died for us. We can appreciate it. That does not mean that it's necessarily appreciated in the United States because of the sensibilities that lie behind it, etc., etc., etc. So neither are these aesthetics always seen as part of conversations on the identity of the various nations, as you just explored about the Belgium situation. Simultaneously, by softly introducing different perspectives into local discourses, artists are making space for their concerns to become part of the national consciousness, as it is in the US and in the UK. An insertion of sensibilities takes place that offer new ways of seeing, regardless of the framework from which the work is critiqued. Thank you very much. That was short, no? Good.
It was fantastic. Thank you, Charles Landvreugd. Some of the stuff that you discussed now, Charles, I hope to be talking to with my next guest. But first, this is the part where we were expecting Karen Taylor from Germany. And I wonder if we should just look at the little clip made by father and son about that history of Germany. Let's have a quick look. Itakom. Soon come. It's not coming at all. All right, let's skip it. I don't think Germany is in our stars for today. Let's just... Okay. It is? Is that a yes, Julia? Here it comes. Yeah.
Colonial History under 3 minutes presents Germany. Before 1871 there were no colonies because there was no Germany. Well, except maybe when King Frederick of Brandenburg swapped his fort in Ghana with the Dutch for 12 black boys, of whom 6 had to wear a golden necklace. Anyway, German unity. This helmet was worn by Wilhelm I. German colonization took off when the Chancellor, also wearing this helmet, started protecting private companies in East Africa. During 1885, European countries cut up Africa, resulting in Western and later Eastern German Africa, while meanwhile heading east. Time for a new Kaiser wearing the same goofy helmet. Starting in Asia, a place under the sun was wanted and more followed. Fed up with colonial rule, Herero and Nama revolt. 2 leaders took up arms, resulting in over 65,000 Herero and over 10,000 Nama getting killed. The German commander placed remaining people in concentration camps, organizing what is seen as the first genocide of the century. On top of the camps, executions and displacement into the desert were common. This gave way to skull measurements and social Darwinist experiments, including injecting people with diseases and poison, supporting racial theories to come. When World War I ends, Germany loses all of its colonies as part of the mandate. The colonies are divided between several countries. The continuity thesis suggests this history gave rise to the Nazi theories leading up to World War II. Today, Namibia's white population makes up 6% of the population while controlling 90% of the land. 40% is fenced off, which comes down to 36% of the country. These descendants of German and South African colonizers work with Western multinationals and keep benefits from mining and farming, as commercial farming only employs 8% of Namibians. Though Germany has made official apologies, it's not willing to talk about reparations. Back home, Afro-German organizations protest the street name and subway stop. Also, Petersallee, named after a brutal colonial nicknamed Hangman Peters, is under attack. Finally, the fur busts of black people in Potsdam, named Morgenrondel, spark controversy, being part of the Prussian Brandenburg legacy. Remember the 12 boys? So far for Germany.
So I suggest that if this is a little fast for you, that you go to all our Rode Hoed Skin Deep pages and just play this, slow motion, so you can get everything. But we really appreciate what Father and Son Raoul and Leo Balai have done for us. This takes us to our intermission. Have a drink, stretch your legs, and we'll be back in about 20 minutes to talk, first of all, with Pascal Obolo from France, and then together with Milat Negoussi. I suggest that you all, if you want to join the discussion, you find yourself a place downstairs after the break so that you can actually get a microphone under your nose. Because without a microphone, we're not putting you on the show. See you at 9:30 sharp. Thanks for being here so far.
Make me a star. Yeah. Hey mama, I fucked that check up. Count a million times, my whole neck up. Yeah.
let's find our seats. And remember that if you want to participate in the discussion, it's best to come downstairs. We've got enough space here. I'll explain it to you. It's not because we want to put you in the spotlights per se. It's merely a question of sound. There are people watching us all over the world, and without sound, they cannot hear what you're saying. So if you want to participate, come downstairs. Enough space, Yasso. Mitchell, anybody else coming in? Can you see? No? Them gone? Okay. Everybody here? Hi, welcome back. I think what I would like is some fire and spice. Andrew?
Yeah, but yeah.
That's the way I do it.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to say I saw at least one of our guests from the other editions, Norali. Thank you for coming. Applaus for
Norali
Norali.
Beyer. Yeah, thanks, Norali.
And I saw Gideon. Gideon was somewhere over here just a while ago. Maybe where's Gideon? Yes, applause for Gikkels. Yeah, my brother.
Where?
Yeah.
Put up your hand.
Because without these people, we wouldn't be able to do this. So thank you so much for that. But let's open up the room for some questions or comment. Who has something to say? This is the last Skin Deep.
Sniff. I'm sure you were talking.
Yeah, yeah, and then I'll go to you. Well, I'll come to the lady. You first.
My question is, why is it so hard for white people to understand or realize that black people are just acknowledging a pain that comes from their behavior? Why is it so hard to see it as a pain and see the humanness in that?
So we've noted that. That's one question?
Yes, that's one question.
Is there somebody who has an answer?
Exactly, because
you don't have to be white. It's also, it's not like black and white, boom, boom, boom. So if you're black and you think I know the answer, then you can raise your hand. But otherwise, I'll go to the...
But keep this question in
Please
mind
stand
because
up,
it's crucial.
Thank you.
Well, I have a question for Carl.
Charles has just left. But you know why? He's finishing his PhD this week. So, sorry, but what was the question?
Well, I would like to know if we find out why the European artists use American visuals in their art. And if there are examples of Suriname artists who use their history in their art, because it's something that I didn't see yet.
Very interesting question. She says, why are these artists using American visuals instead of visuals maybe rooted in Suriname or Curaçao or Western or Eastern Africa? Let's go to the Balai.
Tell us you have an answer. Or
yes,
is it
he
another
has.
question?
He has.
He does. That's great.
Give him a round of applause. He's responsible for the, for the videos tonight. The videos tonight with his father. Yeah.
Big up.
Mag ik? To answer your question, there are a lot of artists in Holland who use Surinamese backgrounds for their work. Well, Charles is one. We got Remy Jungerman, Patricia Kaarsenhout. We got Iris Kensmil. We got Raoul Balai.
Okay, hold on. I'm coming back to you. Could you get to her? Because this seems like a discussion, which is great.
Andrew, we're not hearing what you're saying. Andrew was saying we're getting a discussion now, which is
finish
great.
My sentence? And the reason I think why we use American iconography is because what Charles always also said, like the emancipation process in American culture has gone beyond the point where we are at, and we're trying to do this same process, like he said, I think also in a decade or two.
Okay, now we're gonna. We komen echt bij u. Ja. And is er inmiddels ook iemand? Is there somebody else who has a question?
Start raising your hands.
No, I mean the painful history, because what I used to see in visuals of Suriname artists is about the religion, huinte, or the material you used to see from the Marons. But I miss the painful history, our painful history about slavery. And what he shows is what the artists from France and Sweden or Denmark are doing. But I didn't see yet a Suriname artist in the work.
Dus even translating in Dutch. U mist een beetje de pijnlijke geschiedenis in die iconografie en de voorbeelden. Misschien nog één reactie? Or one more reaction and then we move on.
Well, I would like to suggest to look up the last work by Patricia Kaarsenhout. It's called Blood Sugar. It's about blood, sugar, like the real painful things in slavery. I don't know, and I don't think like if you look at it in a conceptual way, why we should have this iconography in a Dutch way. I mean, Zwarte Piet is an example, like the blackface the Swedish artist used, that comes from American background, but...
Please,
No.
We need you in the microphone. So.
Yes. Last remark also, yes.
In Dutch is okay.
Ja, ja, ik vind het heel erg, maar ik mis het in de kunsten. Weet je. Ik heb heel veel kunst gezien. Ik ga naar biennales, maar ik mis het in de kunst van Surinamers.
This lady misses that topic in Surinamese
we are
art.
not that far yet, or we don't know our history.
Laatste reactie en dan gaan we verder.
Ja.
Ik weet niet waarom we het per se zo letterlijk uit zouden moeten beelden om dezelfde onderwerpen ter discussie te brengen. Ja, weet ik niet. Maar misschien hebben we andere beeldculturen, dat zou ook kunnen.
I think that's the point, because of course Americans are like 20, 30 years ahead of the rest of the world when it comes to imagery. So maybe that's one of the reasons.
We have to cut it short here.
Yes, we do.
Order in the court. Is there somebody else who has another question?
What did you talk about during the break, for example?
Yeah. Oh, see? They were looking at me like, yeah, we want to say something. Stand up, please. Stand up, stand up. Ja, ik geef u de microfoon, maar...
All right, so Andrew's going to hand over the mic, but he wants it back.
Nou, ik zit in het onderwijs al 25 jaar. En wat net zei, hoorde ik iemand zeggen van nou, het moet in de instituten beginnen. En onderwijs is een instituut. En ik heb een collega, zij doet Engels, ik ben biologie. We zitten in het bestuur van het Algemene Onderwijsbond als tak kleurrijk. En we zijn naast op zoek naar donkere leerkrachten of kleurrijke leerkrachten die met ons willen meedenken over de toekomst van de kleurrijke docenten. Maar als ik zoek, dan vind je bijna niemand. Okay. Dus dat is het waarom zijn we bang om hierover te praten.
Yeah. Translation, Andrew?
She's a teacher. And I think you're at not a union, but some board of representation where you're thinking and discussing about the future of diversity and difference in this educational environment. And you say that you're looking for people of diverse backgrounds, but they are hard to find. But let me ask you another question. You found your way to that institution. What do you think is the reason that others refrain from going to where you are now? Wat denk je dat de reden is dat anderen hun weg niet vinden?
I teach English, so I can do it in English.
Yeah.
I think the main reason that most colored people are afraid to apply for such functions, because, like personally myself, I'm from Tanzania, East Africa. All the credits that you accumulated in Africa, when you move to Europe, they are nothing. They're worth nothing.
So you have to start from zero.
Yeah. My father came here with a PhD, and the University of Groningen said to him, you have to do your master's again. Not only did he have a PhD, but he was also a diplomat. No, you have to do your master's again, and then get a PhD all over again. So as black people, I think, as Africans, for myself, we think it's too much of a journey, too much of a struggle, too much of a battle. I'll just go and clean toilets, whatever.
Aldith, that really hurts because you know Tanzania, the country of Julius Nyerere, one of the great African revolutionaries. One more question: what made you go on? Because this is also about learning. Skin Deep is about learning. People are watching at home who might want to get somebody in a function like you're describing. What kept you going on, and what got you at the actual function you are?
I think the main reason was, and I think I speak for Marjorie as well, is once we got into the institution, we saw how many colored students were actually there. We teach in a VMBO school, and like 85% of our students are from different backgrounds. You can literally count the white kids, let's say, in one or two hands. Maximum. You can spot during the breaks or the white kids, and it's all like different races, Asians, blacks, and half mixed race kids, like my own kids. That's what got me inspired. Like, oh, I thought when I went into the education system, I would find only white kids and I'll have no connection with them. But it was different. I could connect, and I became as an inspiration for them. And I teach, but I don't like to call myself as a teacher. I say I inspire. I'm there to inspire them, and that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. You do.
Thank you.
Yes. I know there's more questions, but we'll get to you later. We need to go on with the program. Thank you, Andrew. So our last main guest for this evening comes from France. And before we speak with her, let's take a look at that 3-minute history of France and its way of dealing with the topic of black and white. Roll tape.
Colonial History under 3 minutes presents France. Early adapter France started out in Newfoundland, moved south but got blocked by Spanish and the Protestant Reformation. The first colonial empire starts with Nova Scotia and Quebec, followed by entering French Guiana and Senegal. St. Kitts, Guadeloupe, Martinique and St. Lucia all become colonies where enslaved Africans are put to work. Slaughtering all indigenous Carib during the Carib expulsion makes room for entering Haiti. A few years later, King Louis XIV is honored by naming Louisiana after him. Meanwhile, India and the Indian Ocean are being conquered, followed by the French and English wars. Alongside the Indian Wars, this made France lose almost all of its colonies. In Haiti, Toussaint Louverture revolted successfully, battling not only the French but also the English and Spanish, afterwards supporting revolutions throughout the Americas. In 1791, France abolishes slavery, only to be reinstalled in 1802 and abolished again. 1798 till 1802, Egypt was targeted. Time for the Second Empire, starting in 1830, followed by Vietnam and Cambodia, trying to increase influence in Asia and being part of destroying the Chinese Summer Palace. Syria and Libya are shortly governed, and back to Egypt for the Suez Canal, while getting mixed up in Mexico and finally grab all of Senegal. Polynesia and Tahiti are next, and don't forget about Laos. A battle for Tunisia is won from Italy, which prepares us for the scramble for Africa. With great outcome for France, creating West, Equatorial and Eastern territories. And yes, scattered islands in the Indian Ocean is really the name of a group of islands. Google it. Time to get into Morocco. And here comes World War I. Marking the beginning of categorizing of colonial citizens more or less like the Belgians. On to World War II, when most colonies support France. Around 300,000 North African soldiers fight in Europe, liberating also Zeeland. After the war, large parts of colonies are ruled by other countries. Decolonization takes off quickly. Cambodia declares independence, Algerian uprising, Syria and Vietnam are fed up. Madagascar is also resisting, partly strengthened by the new French Union. This enables Senghor, amongst others, to enter French politics, but where's the égalité? In the east, a division in north and south takes place and the US starts a war. 1954 till 1962 marks the FLN revolt during the Algerian War. On their side, the famous thinker and writer Frantz Fanon, who fought for France in the Second World War. Back home, police is responsible for the 1961 Paris massacre, killing over 200 Algerians as a climax of years of hate speak against them, with a special role for Jean-Marie Le Pen, 1958. We now enter a new political era enforcing new colonial rules and regulation, while Togo and Cameroon become independent. Up to today, still in place is France d'Outre-mer, considering 13 territories worldwide as French territory. Back home, a museum about slavery is announced, but considering the banlieue riots of 2005 and the attacks on Charlie Hebdo, one can wonder how well the past is digested. So far for France.
Wow. When I watch this stuff, I wonder how can Europeans, just look at themselves in the mirror and be very serious about the fact that it's other people trying to swamp Europe. That's just a question I have when you look at European history at large. So thank you very much to Raoul and Leo Balai once again for making these very insightful little videos. So joining me now is Pascal Obolo. Her family's roots lie in Cameroon. She's a film director, an artist, an activist based in Paris. She explores topics like the women's hip-hop movement in the French suburbs, as well as the position of women in the contemporary art world. Pascal works for La Colonie and is co-founder of the contemporary art magazine Africada. Pascal Obolo, please join me. Have a seat. Nice having you here. Thank you for coming all the way from Paris.
Yes.
So, first question, Pascal. What are French issues regarding diversity? What are the problems that France is dealing with, so to speak?
Wow.
Well, you can just, you know, the three major ones.
No, it's the situation in France, it's very complex. It's very hard, it's very difficult, because they have so many problems about, they have racism about Muslim people, about religion, they have racism about black people, they have a very, how do you say, also problem about LGTB, black feminism, all kind of things. So it's very, very difficult to deal with all this problematic, and also they have this institutional racism.
Yes, which is called state racism in France, I believe.
Yes.
Yes.
So it's very, it's very hard to deal with all these problems.
But France is founded on the principle of liberté, égalité, fraternité. So does this liberty and this equality and this brotherhood, does it count for every French person?
I think that it's for white French people, it means something, but for the new generation, the new immigration now who are French, it doesn't mean nothing, because when we talk about equality in school, they doesn't exist. When we talk about equality in religion, it doesn't exist. Equality in politics doesn't exist. So it's very, how do you say? I think it's something that came from the past, and now we must try to find how to create a new story, a new common story, with the new young generation, and that's why also that we try to reappropriate it, their own story, to retelling their own story also.
To change the narrative.
Yes.
Yes. I know that in France it's illegal to classify anybody by race or religion. So if this is what you want, if to create a new narrative, you do need to name certain things. So how would you go about that? If you can't classify by race or by religion, how can you make that topic topical? How can you put it on the agenda?
This is a kind of hypocrisy that we have in France. But as an activist, and I know some organization who try to fight to change many things, even in politics, in art, in many domains, the idea is to how do you say, to create a new spaces where we can exchange, and also to create a new common narrative.
Right. One of those places is La Colonie,
Yes.
where you work. Explain to us, what is La Colonie?
This is very, very special space, because it was created in 1 year ago by a very talented artist called Kader Atia, and it's from Algerian artist, but he lives in Berlin. But he started this project 10 years ago, because in France they have no spaces for to exhibit African art contemporary. It's very difficult. They have no spaces to question post-colonial study. So the idea of Kadir, it was to create this kind of spaces where we can show. It's more a space of to share knowledge.
Yes.
To also to question and to experiment a new artistic practice, new theories in art also. At the same time, it's situated in Gare du Nord, and in Gare du Nord, it's very diversity people. They have Indian people, black people, and Chinese people. And it's also people who came from Gare du Nord, from London, from Belgium, from Netherlands. It's 5 units from Gare du Nord.
I think that's where we found you, isn't it? Yes, I believe. So this is a physical space. It's like a venue like this.
Yeah.
And so you have conferences, I believe.
You have a conference. We have performance. We have exhibition. Also, we organize some African art book fair. We experiment many things, in this space because there are few view space like this, and now for the many institutions, many people look at what's happening in La Colonie, and also they try to reappropriate all the debate, all the content that we created in La Colonie. So it's very interesting and very exciting at this moment. What's happening in La Colonie.
Very. So in the daytime, La Colonie does all these things, and at night, when the hipster white people come to drink, I think you put up the price of the drinks there, which makes La Colonie self-sufficient. Well, it's a smart thing. We need that in Holland as well. There is no reason why a beer should cost the same at 2 in the afternoon or 10 at night. It should be double at 10.
But it's very funny because at the beginning, when we opened La Colonie, it was for the people who have no voices. It was for the people and also the organization who live in the suburbs. It was for the, activism association.
Yeah.
But because it was very fashionable, it was recolonizing.
Well, that's how it goes.
The upstairs, white, young, fashion people.
Yeah.
And so that's why also we. I think that it's independent spaces.
That's what.
Also.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And
it's funded by yourselves.
It's funded by Kader,
Right.
and it's another friend called Zico. And but they have no funding for another institution.
Why?
It's only the bar who pay the conference, who pay the exhibition, all the intellectual production critics.
Yes.
It's only paid by the bar.
Right. So that means you don't have any funding. Is that because you don't want it or because you didn't get it?
It's both.
Explain the first part.
It's both because the topic that we question in La Colonie, it's very taboo in France, and also it's impossible to question this kind of topic in the institution art space or institution spaces.
Why? What happens if you do question it in such a space?
It's one of the last questions that we organized. It was about prostitution during the colonization. So it's impossible to talk about this, even in the university, even in the art museum. It's just impossible.
Because what happens when you try? Can you get your black foot in the door that's trying to close in your face?
No, because also they have some kind of there are some institutions who working and reappropriated the topic that we started to question in 20 years ago, in 10 years ago about post-coloniality in politics, in art, also in economics. And they never want to talk about post-coloniality. Even now in the university, they have no chair of post-coloniality researches laboratory.
So what does it take for you to get your message across? I understand that you do it in your own space, but I believe that it should be something that should be done on a national level. So how can you proceed?
I think that it's kind of fight between the structure and also the community within La Périphérique who try to rethinking and to create it a new way to create a new critic production. And also a new way to practice the new artistic practice, and who came from the community, and the idea is to, because we know that the institution, they have more money, they have a lot of spaces, and at the same time they have not really the topic that they debate in their own institution is very obsolete, and it's not really interesting. And people now, because of the complexity of the globalization, are very interesting about the question that we talk about in La Colonie. Yes. That's why also that's very popular, because there are many people who came, even people who we not, La Colonie is not so far from where they have migrant people who live in Stalingrad.
Yeah.
So sometimes when we do some conference about the topic about immigration or the migrant, we invite some associations. We invite migrants also, and we invite also sometimes the artists who go to jungle in Calais to see like a human zoo, to watch these people and try to tell the story. But we are interested that it's very important that people from the community must talk about our own story, must also created a new critic production and also the new artistic aspect. This is very important for
it definitely is. Still, I cannot ignore the fact that what you're telling me, to me it seems that you are preaching to the choir. You're keeping it in your own circle, and there is hardly any way to get outside of that circle. What would you need to bridge that gap? What would take this conversation that you're...
La Colonie is very open. It's open because...
but do the institutions come?
Yes.
They do?
You can imagine. They came to to spoil.
Yeah.
To pick up what
highlights.
What we experiment. And also they have some big institutions like Sciences Po, when they want to organize a kind of conference about post-colonial study.
Yes,
they prefer to come to do this conference in La Colonie because of the credibility of the
okay, so you've gotten that far in 1 year. That's excellent.
And also it's very bizarre because you must fighting against that because there are a lot of there are a lot of money, so they propose a lot of things also because it's free in La Colonie. You can just send your event and you say that, is it possible to do this? Is it free? Blah, blah, blah. And it's free. It's free for everybody. This space is kind of it's space for, emancipation.
Yeah.
It's space also of friction. The idea also is to invite people who don't think like like us, but to try to, to to find, to try to understand each other.
Yes.
You know, also that it's very important. That's why I think also this space is very successful, because it's one of the first space who, even if I disagree with your idea, I can come and I can tell you that I disagree, I'm a racism, and I explain why I don't want to be here, or how are you, I don't like black people, I don't want Muslim people, all kind of things.
It's an open space, it's a safe space, things can be said there.
Yeah,
a bit like us here at Skin Deep. So are the French in any way aware of the economic implications of having migrants? Not implications, the advantages.
The advantages about...
For example, what we see in the rest of Europe, there are certain jobs that the white population really doesn't want to do anymore, and they still need doing. Does that count?
Yes.
Not really?
Yes, not really. Not really, because now with the new government, it's become more and more difficult, and the situation for the migrants become very, very hard, very, very difficult, even for the minor migrant, you know. And also, even for the women migrants, they have a new law for the minor migrant, for women migrants. So
well, there's a difference between man and women migrants in France. What?
No, because they have some. How do you say? I don't know how do you say in English.
You can say it in French.
Les sans-papiers.
Yeah.
Who are minor, and also for the women.
Yeah.
It was very, you know, it was not so hard, you know. Now, even if you are minor, you the government with the new law, it's how do you say? You can't help the minor.
Yes. It used to be easier for children and women to get their papers to go to France, and now
not to get the paper, but to help.
Right.
They can go to school. They can. They help also from a woman who was raped. All kind of things. They have some money for the structure to help this kind of situation.
Yes.
Now
it's changed. Okay. Another thing. That's the last thing I want to talk to you about right now. Only this week, the French President Macron decided that art that was, let's say, borrowed from the colonies will probably go back to those countries. Have you heard about that?
Yes.
And what is your reaction to that? The borrowed art.
I think it will be very difficult.
Why?
Because it's more European. How do you say? I think if he wants to try to change something,
it has to be on a European scale.
Yes, because all the ethnological museum in Europe,
have the same
problem.
Right.
How to deal with all this object that was, who's belong to now to the African country, because now the problematic is the African country now build a museum, but they have nothing in this museum. Everything is in outside of Africa.
Right.
So now, how you can find a new way to deal with this problematic, to deal with this historic.
Yes.
Because it was also, there are some object who was stolen during the colonization. So it's very, very, I think it will be very difficult. It's just to, how do you say, I think they will have a commission, but I think it will be very difficult to put or to create it in law Because when you in France, it's impossible from a family who know that they have some objects who are in the French museum to ask. It's only your, how do you say, your government
that can ask for it.
To
Yes.
another government.
Right.
For the African country. Because for the situation for Jews, it's different.
That was family art and...
Can ask.
Yes.
For the...
So we still have A people, B people, C people.
Yes.
The Africans being C in this
Yeah,
case.
yeah.
Yes. Okay, so what would you recommend us? Who should we look at in France? Is there anybody leading the way, you know, blazing fire?
Yes. There are many people. I like the woman like Françoise Vergès.
Why?
Françoise Vergès, it's an activist woman. She came from Ireland, from l'île de la Réunion, and she was one of the first. She had a share in la Maison des Sciences de l'Homme, called Global South, and
called
Global South.
Global South.
Yes, and it's a very interesting and very experimental chair because she was one of the first. Woman, and also it was the first chair she invite artists, philosophers, activists to rethinking and also to deconstruct, to reconstruct, to decolonize
language,
institution,
yes.
University, and it's just she do amazing work. You can imagine.
She's getting the point across.
Yes, and she changed many things. You know, me, I'm teaching in art school in Quimper, and I teach African contemporary art.
Yeah.
And it was one of the first art schools that they have this kind of how do you say topics. Because in art school they have no, how do you say, they don't teach African art contemporary.
No, because that's primitive art, Pascal. You know that.
No, they teach primitive art in l'École du Louvre.
Oh, they do. Okay.
And all very big, you know, institutional art school.
Yes.
But African contemporary, it's impossible.
Okay.
And it was the first, this year it was the first time that I teach in this art school.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting because I have 16 young French students. And my first question when I arrived, I said, "Can you tell me, or can you tell me only one name of a famous African artist?"
Yes.
Nobody in my classroom know nothing. And I asked her, "Can you tell me, or can you tell me one name of the big exhibition in France of about African art contemporary?" Nobody, no name.
Well, then you're doing good
you
work.
know.
We'll talk to you again in about 3 to 5 years. Pascal Obolo, please remain seated. I wonder if there's anybody. Andrew.
Yeah, because it's about 10 o'clock.
It is.
We have a little bit of time left. Who wants to say something? Yeah.
Stand up for your rights.
What's your name?
My name is Melissa Mchanet Vandira Budding, so I have a long name.
And where are you from, South Africa?
No, I'm from Zimbabwe. Yes, ik spreek ook Nederlands. Wat u zou willen horen.
No, let's keep it in English for
in
today.
In English, okay, that's
yes.
all right. I was born in Zimbabwe, raised up to my 22nd of, I was 22 when I left the Zimbabwe to the Netherlands. I came with my brother, he was an expat in The Hague. So I remember crying at the airport because I didn't want to leave my parents. But anyway, there was no choice because, you know, in Zimbabwe we believe, people believe that education is very important. So my brother was like, you have the chance to go to the Netherlands so you can have your You can study. You can go to the TU. You can do chemistry like I did. And,
Wow, Delft, Technische Universiteit. Delft, yeah, okay.
but you know, the thing is,
I'm just keeping it real.
yeah, keeping things real, of course. So when I came to the Netherlands, I was homesick. I missed my mom. I missed my father. I did miss everything.
Short version, Melissa. Short.
Yeah. So I was really, up to the day of today, I miss Zimbabwe so much. I grew up in Harare, it's a big city, and I also grew up after the time in Chivi, is one of the oldest rural areas you can ever think of, where you can go fetch water, 10 kilometers walking and stuff.
And now the question is coming.
Yeah, the question.
No, I'm keeping it real. This is an Africa story. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
Continue.
So, you know, why are you laughing?
Because we want you to make
No,
your
because
point.
you know what? Let me be honest. I would like to listen to you till 12. But the thing is, we have the live stream. We have some other people. So we need to try and cut it short. No disrespect. No. Then no. I am from Uganda. I know what happens if I give you the microphone. So.
Okay, anyway, I live in the Netherlands now for the past 21 years, and I have 3 children. But what happened to the TU, I had homesick, everything. But then I had my first child in 2008. My husband is Dutch, Uwe Hollands. And, yes. So to the point is, when I got my first child in 2008, I started carrying my baby at the back. You know, the way we Africans carry our children. And because we were living in a flat, so I could not get along with that pushchair that we actually got one, we didn't buy one. Yeah, okay. So at the end, I have a baby wearing company, one of the biggest, the well-known. If you see mothers carrying babies in the Netherlands, I am one of the biggest influencer in the Netherlands. Yeah. And not only in the Netherlands, of course, so I travel even within Europe.
So.
All right.
We don't disrespect mothers, elders, we don't do that, but we have to get to that.
Okay. My question is, why is it that we Africans, or maybe a lot of immigrants, we do not respect our culture?
That's a great
question. Amen. Give her a round of applause. Yeah.
Because, you know, when I started carrying my child, there were lots of questions, and that was ignorance, because people did not know why is it that we carry a little baby at the back. And then I referred people back to Africa.
Okay, so the same goes for breastfeeding, maybe, your child, yeah? Does somebody have an answer to this question, Pascal? Maybe you why don't we respect our own culture? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melissa.
I think for me it's because of the history of the colonization, and it's also important to, how do you say, we must also decolonizing our own spirit, our own bodies, our own history, and also it's important to know also to our own story, and we must also be proud to the story, and also the people who try to do something to liberate it in many situations, and still slavery, colonization, and until now. I think it's very important. Also, that's why we created this African art journal called Africada. To, how do you say, the idea of this art journal is to give people, black people, to tell our own story, and also to be proud.
So a new narrative. No, excuse me, please, because I give you your time, and you know, there's others too. We can continue afterwards. Who else has a question? I gave you a question earlier. I really want to see if there's somebody else who hasn't said something yet, who wants to get something off his or her chest. Please, now is your chance. Yeah.
Right in the middle. This is Africada, by the way.
Okay.
Yes, looks
Just
great.
stand up. I'll hold the mic because I'm scared that we're gonna.
I'm that short. Like you're talking. I feel you inspire, like you're sharing your story with us here in Holland. What can we learn from you? What we would say?
Well, guess what? That's the question I'm going to ask.
Sorry.
But it's a great question. But maybe we should just ask Milad to join us back here on stage.
Yeah, please, come.
Make this a group situation.
Milad.
Milad Nigusi, back on stage. You still got sound, right? Thank you for that question, because actually that's the first question I want to ask these two ladies together. What is it that you learn from each other? What can we learn from you? Milad, let me ask you first.
Such a difficult question.
All right, you think. Do you have an answer already, Pascal?
Yes.
All right.
It's good.
I think it's important to, how do you say, to create a kind of solidarity.
Among ourselves in Europe?
Yes.
Yeah.
To share also the experience, to understand why it's very difficult to speak about, how do you say, us and not I. I don't know if it's clearly.
No, please.
But le nous.
Yes, us.
Yes.
And they.
And I. And je. Le je.
I. Yes.
Yes.
So it's I and us. That's what we should be saying.
Yes.
Instead of?
Instead of...
we and them.
Yes. I think it's for... I understand and I know for the French situation why it's very difficult and also it's impossible to, how do you say, to create and to fight together as a black community because of the religion, because also of the history, and because also of the tradition. Because I know now in France, because I'm in a black feminism movement, and because of this hashtag to me, they have a very, how do you say, division inside the feminism.
Yeah.
Inside the different minority of feminism.
And you're saying we should come together, group together, organize, centralize, which is what Marcus Garvey used to say.
Yes.
How can we do that? Because we look at you in Belgium, we're here, she's in France. How can we come up with, and do we need it, this Afropean way of communicating, of joining together?
I think it's important because we still tend to look at the United States a lot, the African American experience, and we actually know more about what happens in the United States than what happens in Germany. And I think that's a problem because we're neighbors and we don't know what's happening in our backyard.
So the question is how do we overcome that?
You have to exchange, you have to talk to each other, you have to enter in a conversation, and you have to show that we are not a monolith. There is no one Afropean identity. We're diverse. We have different lived experiences. She lives in Paris, I live in Brussels. What can we learn from each other? But to do that, you have to first talk to each other, right?
Well, this is a start.
Yeah, this is a start. So I think we can learn by talking and by seeing as well. Like, I think representation is really important, and I'm really happy we have two educators in the room because I never grew up with a black teacher. Like, both of my parents are educators, but they never got the opportunity to teach in Belgium. So you can't be what you can't see. And the psychological damage on a black child of never seeing a black teacher is really, really, it's really deep. So we have to empower each other and support each other and encourage each other to go there where no one has ever gone before. Yeah.
I have a question. How do we deal with the situation that when you speak of Afropeans that, for example, in Holland you have Surinamese, people from Curaçao, Aruba.
Still Africans?
And, well, I agree. But the issues they are dealing with are totally different than, for example, a Congolese. No, in the sense that I'm asking, some people want to do business and are happy with their presence in the Netherlands. Others want to address colonization, slavery. Sometimes from the outside it seems not to mix. I think it's possible, but how do you think we can meet each other looking at the different goals we have living in Europe?
But don't white people have different goals and nobody makes a problem out of that?
Well, yeah, but there's only one black politician in Germany.
Right.
A man from Ghana. If you can tell me, name 10 or 15 black politicians in Europe, then I'm with you. But we are not organized, we are decentralized, we have different denominations, so that is a reality. And I'm asking our friends from outside of Holland, what do you think we can do to meet each other?
I don't think it's a problem that we're decentralized. I think it's our power. I think it's good we're fighting the fight on different fronts. I think it's good we have different opinions and diversity in not only the way we talk. We speak different languages. We're not the same. And I think instead of trying to mold us into like a little box, we have to embrace that diversity, and we have to acknowledge that that's a strength.
I like the way you say it, because that's what I meant, but you said it in a better way. Acknowledge the differences.
And acknowledge that we're doing different stuff.
Yeah.
We don't have to all think and do the same. Right. You have journalists, you have lawyers, you have teachers. They may not agree on a lot of things, but we're out there doing stuff.
Is there anybody else who has a question?
Maybe Pascal can do you have an idea on this?
I have some problem with the word of Afro-European.
Yes.
For me.
Explain.
Yeah.
And about the definition of this topic. And I think that we're rethinking to create a new word who can define black community in Europe. Because even white people now, they don't, how do you say, recognizing in European, has a European, how do you say?
Say it in French.
European community.
Yes.
As a white people, it's very difficult because we see, because of the extreme in in France, there are some part of French people who don't want to be in Europe. They are disagree with the politics and the vision of the European culture, all kind of things. And I think it's the same thing for the European, Afro-European worlds and people,
Yes. I agree, which is what I was trying to say. But having said that, we do need to find a way, a space, a manner for us to claim or spot.
For me, I think the solution is that we must, how do you say, because there are some topics, we suffer with the same things, some issue.
Yeah.
So, and also we have some topic that we are agree. We must, how do you say, I don't know how to say in English, but partir des souffrances communes.
Yes, we start from the common sufferation.
Find common ground.
And also
suffering,
topics to, how do you say, to create it and to rethinking the future, how we can build the future in Europe as a black people in Europe.
Yeah, agree with that.
Well, first of all, identity is always complex. So the term Afro-European is complex, but the term European is complex too. Like, ask people on the street if they feel European. They might say no, they might say yes. Again, diversity. So we are not, why aren't we attributed or given the same diversity and complexity as white people are? So that's for me the main question. But at the same time, we have to rethink the terms we use. We thought about Afropolitan, now we're talking about Afro-European, and then in 5 years we might talk about a different word, because no word is adequate and will ever be adequate, in my opinion. It's always a process. It's always rethinking and critiquing, and that's good. That's a good thing.
I believe that, I know in the Netherlands this is a snowball that started to roll and it's not going back up the hill anymore. And I think in Europe we have the same phenomenon. So my question to you, to round up for tonight, at least with the two of you, where will we be in, let's say, 15 years? How will it look here?
Here in the Netherlands?
Yeah, no.
In Europe?
You, Belgium, you.
In 15 years.
15. Because I still want to be around when it happens, so tell me.
So I try to stay optimistic.
Yeah.
Even though that's not easy, seeing the political climate and seeing how refugees are treated and how people of color are treated. But I think we are coming to terms with the fact that we are here and we're going to stay here, and we're really trying to find our role in this society and asking, what is my role in this country? I'm a citizen. I pay taxes. I contribute to this country. I demand action, and I demand my rights to be respected. So we're going to demand action.
We're going to, between now and 15 years, we'll all be demanding action.
Yeah.
Pascal, your vision for over 15 years?
My vision is more global.
Yeah?
Because I
right,
think
like
that
global.
we redefine as black people in the globalization, not, how do you say, to thinking as a European black people. Because that if we want to successful, we must, how do you say, redefining as a black people in globalization. I think
redefine what it is.
What it means, and also what we can bring in globalization.
Very interesting.
Gotcha. I think, yes, Andrew, maybe somebody wants to
Yeah,
react
we
to
have
this?
room for one more last remark.
One
and I'm
question.
coming to you, sir. Whoa, wait, we're coming to you.
This guy
We're
is
coming to you.
always out of the start.
Ik wil geen ruzie met hem, dus ik geef u de microfoon. Hou het kort.
Ik hou het heel kort. I just want to ask my sister from Dutch, what is your in 15 years? What is your...
What I think we...
Ja, Aldith, jij en ik wil het ook voor jou horen. En dan laten we het hele rondje afmaken. Aldith, kom op.
Somebody cares. I share what you started out with. I think we are now going, emotionally, we might feel like we're going down. But I'm such an optimist in life. I know that when you hit rock bottom, the only way is up. So I think this ball is rolling. I think it's not stopping. And I think no matter what, we're going to get through this. And there will be a time where we don't have to ask, we'll just have it. And that's what we're striving for.
Yeah.
Is that an
Okay.
answer for you? Good.
I have a take on it as well.
Yes.
I think the question about what is Afro-European is very interesting. And maybe it's what they call in Dutch vloeken in de kerk. But for example...
Cursing in the church.
Yeah, this year, 2018, in October, Kenya will get landing rights to John F. Kennedy Airport. That means direct flights from Kenya, Nairobi, to New York City. That means that every multinational from the United States will put their headquarters in Nairobi. I think we're going to get more decentralization first, more language disconnection. You focus on being Kenyan, Eritrean, Somalian, Congolese, etc. But then from that we find common grounds through business, through education, and only then we will see what supposedly is a Afro-European identity. Yes. Because I really think Africa, with between now and 2050, 1 billion extra new children. Think about it. 1 billion new people is going to do amazing things. Amazing things.
And Ghana is the fastest growing economy
Amazing.
in the world.
Thank you so much. So,
Thank you. So, to end this evening with you ladies, we asked you both to bring a book that we should all be reading. You don't have it?
I don't have it.
What's the book?
It's called Zwart.
Oh, Zwart, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Give us, for those who don't know, a short description of Zwart and why we should be reading it.
So
see it here.
Oh,
I guess so.
perfect.
Yes.
Okay.
Why
cool.
should we all be reading Zwart? Zwart meaning black, by the way.
So it's an anthology of 19 writers living in the Netherlands and Belgium, or people who grew up in these countries. And it's the first time that an anthology like this has ever been produced, has ever been published. It's in Dutch as well. It's not in English. Because African, or writers of African descent, tend to be very popular when they're from the United States or from Africa or the UK, but we don't really have an eye, or we don't really acknowledge the writers that live here. So, and it's just, you know, it's an amazing book. It's 19 different stories. It's fiction and nonfiction. It's about love. It's about pain. It's about joy. It's about all the complexities and you know, the joy of being black in Belgium and in the Netherlands.
Great. And the question that every white journalist asks, should white people be reading it too?
Of course,
okay,
of course.
Good. Let's leave it at that.
And I'm also in it.
You're in it. Yes, we should be all reading it. Thank you, thank you. And you, what did you bring us?
I bring this book, this bridge called My Back, writing by a radical woman of color. It's kind of Bible for me.
Right, why?
Yes, because when you started as a young black woman to be activism in feminism, I think it's one of the best book to read because they mix many format of writing. They have poetry, they have essay, they have many strong, powerful words was writing by powerful activist colors women, because they have Chinese, Indian, women who came from Latino women also, the women like Audre Lorde, all kind of very strong women who can give you strong if you want to start it as activism in Afro-feminism.
And is it an easy read? Can you just, you know, lie down on your vacation chair and read it, or do you have to go sit on a desk and
No. You can share, you know, because you have some poetry, and you can, you know, read for your friends. Some friends can play music, and you can read also.
It's just a good read.
Yes.
Well, wonderful. Thank you. We will add those two to our reading list. Thank you so much for coming from Paris, Pascal Obolo, and Milad Nichoussi coming from Brussels. Wonderful talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'm going to round up now with Andrew. Yes.
Can we
thanks. That was it for you. Thank you so much. This is very nuts. Are you taking your Africada with you, or am I keeping it?
Yes, I'm taking it.
You're taking it.
I must give to one of my friends.
You do that.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Once again, Pascal Obolo and Milad Nichoussi. Of course, thanking Charles Landfreut as well for his earlier...
and let's not forget Stephanie, who's not with us tonight.
Exactly. We miss her, but to be honest, I like doing it tonight. So.
Oh, give her a round of applause. Come on. All
right, Andrew, thank you. That's overdoing it. Let's all, while we're at it, let's thank our other colleagues. Matea de Jong.
Stand up, Matea.
Matea.
Imara, stand up.
Yes, Mitchell. Where's Mitchell?
Mitchell. Big up Jesse, his wife. You know, thank you for all your help in the back, Jesse. Yes.
Clyde in the back.
Clyde.
Yulia on top.
Yulia, stand up, Yulia. Without Julia, this would have not been here. Julia, thank you so much.
Where's Esther? Esther
Garland.
Where is she? I think
she's busy.
She's busy. All right, okay, but she was here as well.
Wait, Esther, applause. Yes,
upstairs. And of course, Andrew.
No.
So, yes, Andrew,
It's okay.
This is the rest. This is all of us, and let's end with the books that all of our guests have recommended this past season. For those of you interested, I think you all found on your seats a list with all the books that we spoke of this season of Skin Deep. At least you know what to look for. And way in the back of the room, Mitchell Isaias has gotten some books that you can just browse. You cannot buy them there, but at least you know what they look like, what they feel like. So back in the corner, Mitchell and his Black Archives have supplied us with those books. That's it. Did you love doing this?
I loved it. Did you guys love it?
Should we be doing it again?
Yeah.
Yeah, right to the people in Amsterdam City.
And you know why? Because people of all areas came through, and it was good to see the Africans here tonight. Made me happy. Tell your friends to tell your friends to tell their friends to come back to Hoed next year when we do a new Skin Deep. Thank you so much. Love and respect. Thank you, Aldith.
Respect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was lovely. It really was. Time for a drink now. Yeah.